The year was 1962, and Mapleton, Vermont was the kind of town where traditions were sacred. Every Christmas Eve, the mayor and his wife lit the giant fire on Main Street, surrounded by lanterns, carolers, and townsfolk in scarves knitted by grandmothers. The festive glow was the town's heartbeat, except for what happened to me. My parents owned the Mapleton Book Nook, the little store by the corner. I grew up sorting papers and polishing shelves, dreaming of the day I'd stand under those lights with my fiancé Tom. He was a local firefighter, strong, warm-hearted, and a familiar face in holiday crowds. I pictured us standing together under the fir, me in a coat he'd whispered cost thousands, not dollars. But that Christmas, no one asked me. The mayor's wife, Eleanor Prescott, politely declined my application to flip the switch, saying, "Maybe next year, dear." Mapleton has its way of doing things. I smiled, squeezed Tom's hand, and nodded. I swallowed my disappointment with cocoa and Silent Night. Fast forward to weeks, and Tom's eyes were distant. He said he wanted someone who fits. I took the hint. He didn't want to stand with me under that tree. He wanted status, not heart. On New Year's morning, he told me they were calling off the wedding for my sake. He said I deserved someone more suitable. I watched him walk away and felt the snow melt in my chest. Mapleton was painful, empty, gray, but quiet determination is born from cold nights. By February, I began working odd jobs, writing newspaper editions for the local Mapleton Gazette, helping the florist deliver Valentine roses, even assisting at a ski lodge. Every dollar saved was a seed of purpose. One afternoon in March, I walked past the abandoned Prescott Event Center, a former opera house once used for town balls, then neglected since the mayor's father died in the 50s. The building was decayed, but something stirred inside me. Its windows were dark, its stage silent, just like my heart. On a whim, I contacted the bank that held the mortgage. I learned the center was valued at $4 million, but it had defaults and owners who didn't care anymore. Over the next 6 months, I pitched investors, small town but generous souls, the florist who'd told me your smile outshines any holly, the ski lodge manager who trusted my work ethic, even the janitor at town hall who remembered my parents. They believed me, a woman who had been overlooked not as a consolation, but as a spark. By autumn, I had enough for a down payment, renovation plans, and a dream I wouldn't admit yet. Then came October. The festival concept bloomed, a celebration for everyone, shut out families who couldn't afford Prescott's fancy tickets, orphans, the elderly widows, the veterans who served Mapleton and never got a parade. I filled pages with ideas, paper, lantern dances, gingerbread bake-offs, storytelling sessions in the old opera room, snowflake workshops for children, a festival where everybody got to light a tree. When I announced it in November, the town was skeptical. Riley who? They whispered. But I didn't care, because this wasn't about them liking me. This was about them needing me. One frostbitten evening, I stood on the dusty stage, imagining my words echoing through the hall. This will be your festival, your story, your light. Then, I walked out into the quiet foyer, past faded curtains where generations once danced, and for the first time since Christmas, I felt warmth. It wasn't Christmas yet, but it was mine. Spring draped Mapleton in pastel blooms and fresh hope. I poured this energy into repairing the Prescott Event Center, the dusty stage, chipped seats, and broken chandeliers. Each hammer strike felt like clearing snow from my own buried dreams. I worked late nights, under incandescent bulbs borrowed from local hardware, determined to restore sparkle to a place long forgotten. But this revival needed more than elbow grease, it needed people's hearts. So I went door to door in every neighborhood. Mrs. Jenkins, the widow across the street, wept when she saw my vision board. She offered homemade cookies and to sew lantern bags. Sergeant Miller, a retired veteran, asked if he could lead the flag ceremony, which would be the first event honoring both Christmas and community. Teenagers from the local school came by with guitars, offering to perform folk carols for free. They all said, we weren't invited to the town tree lighting. This will build together. 1. Building trust. Show I was serious. I hosted community talks in my parents' living room. Over tea and cinnamon buns, I laid out festival plans, lighting 1,000 lanterns, a huge shared tree in the plaza, a giving wall for neighbors to post small gifts, penny donations to light the whole plaza. By the end of each talk, tears, hugs, and yes, donations flowed. People began calling me Mapleton's own. I listened, took names, wrote budgets, and sketched layouts on scraps of ledger paper. My heart thundered not with fear but purpose. 2. Securing funding but ideas needed financing. I applied for a small town grant, 2 business loans, and pitched my vision to Prescott Bank where Tom's father was a board member. They said, "Incredible. If you can match the loan." I didn't blink. I cashed in my savings, borrowed from my florist friend's credit line, and even sold the Mapleton book Nook lease so my parents could retire with peace. I closed the deal by June with $1.8 million raised. They lit the center's exterior in lights by midsummer. Locals stopped, took photos, and said, "She actually did it." 3. The first Sparkleboard Day arrived and the center's doors opened for a pre-festival ceremony. Lanterns hung in trees. The old stage gleamed. My voice shook only once. This is for everyone who's ever been told no, including one lonely girl who believed she could change her town. The applause was my winter's warmth. 4. A shadow from the past, but not everyone cheered. Mayor Prescott and his wife watched from afar, faces unreadable. Tom showed up too but stayed at the back, expression taut. Eleanor approached me after my speech. "A nice gesture, Miss Hague. But holiday plans were settled months ago." I smiled. "Not anymore." She left, lips pressed. I ignored the shiver under my skin. This wasn't about approval. It was about belonging. 5. Momentum builds over summer. We hosted weekly events, jazz nights, Christmas story hours, art exhibitions by local children. Even the high school band performed festive melodies under the old chandelier. By October, newspapers reported, Mapleton's new spark. Center lights the way for community revived, and through it all, people said, "We weren't invited then, we built this." 6. Final preparations. Sover arrived with frost on windscreens. The production team, mostly volunteers, was rehearsing carol dances. Lanterns were loaded, electrical wiring tested. I was exhausted, but the glow in everyone's eyes lit me like fireworks. One crisp evening, I walked into the empty auditorium, breathed in the scent of pine, candle wax, and possibility. I whispered to the room, when they said I didn't belong, I thought they were celebrating me, but they were warning me I was about to show them how bright we all can shine. December arrived with biting winds and the faint scent of pine drifting from decorated porches. The big day, the Mapleton Inclusive Christmas Festival, was just days away, and excitement crackled through the town. Lanterns were hung, the plaza was filled with pine boughs, and a massive Christmas tree taller than most doorways was delivered to the center's courtyard. I spent every waking moment coordinating volunteers, rehearsing children's carol performances, and fine-tuning logistics like food trucks, heaters, and stage sound. Still, a rumble of unease settled in my chest. Mayor Prescott had not responded to multiple invitations, and Tom remained distant. 1. The mayor's ultimatum. On December 18th, I received a formal notice from Mayor Prescott's office. "Ms. Hague, please be advised that your event is in direct violation of municipal planning codes. The Central Plaza and the Event Center have overlapping authority. We request you cancel your tree lighting ceremony immediately." My hands trembled for only a moment. Then I replied with calm conviction, "With all respect, the people of Mapleton have chosen this festival. Please consider letting their voices shine." 2. Voices received. Next day, the town's main square was abuzz. Over 200 petition signatures lay at the festival table during my morning lantern check. A neighbor said, "They can't stop all of us." Words traveled fast. We were told we didn't belong at the Christmas tree, so we built one together. A local columnist wrote, "Mapleton, once frozen in tradition, is now warmed by a collective Christmas." People began calling it Riley's tree. 3. A broken engagement. Meanwhile, Tom confronted me in the rehearsal hall. His voice was low, urgent. "Riley, you can't push the town like this." "I've been trying to reason with my father." "Your father," I interrupted, "was part of shutting me out." "Maybe I don't need your wedding for my healing," he faltered. This isn't about what we dreamed." I met his gaze. "This is about everyone's dream." He turned and walked away, a silent end to a promise I knew was already broken. 4. Festive resiliency. Day before the festival, the center filled with last-minute preparations, wreath-adorned archways, vintage lanterns lit with electric flicker, hot chocolate stands run by retired volunteers. Children hung homemade stars on the tree. Snowline paths led explorers through fairy-lit nooks. I took a deep breath amidst the scents of pine and gingerbread and whispered, "From frostbitten doubt, we are forging a fire." Volunteers cheered, 5. Final night before that evening. The stage was set for the big reveal and intimate ceremony before the public event. Lanterns cast a golden glow across faces of every walk of life: factory workers, teachers, veterans, single moms. I stepped forward and said simply, "Tonight, we light more than a tree. We light hope. We light community. We light proof that where doors close, hearts open." 100 lanterns were lit all at once, lanterns that would carry us into a new kind of Mapleton magic. And just like that, December shifted from being an exclusionary season to becoming a celebration of inclusion, raised by one girl who refused to be left in the dark. The crisp morning of the festival arrived with light snow drifting in lazy spirals. The lanterns glowed faintly beneath overcast skies, and my breath puffed in the cold air. I stood backstage at the Prescott Event Center, adjusting my wool coat and smoothing my breath on frosted lips. Around me buzzed volunteers, lace-bedecked booths, hot cider stations, caroling groups warming up. It was alive. Finally, exactly at 5:30 p.m., we opened the doors. Over 1,500 townspeople and visitors poured in, a rainbow of wool hats and scarlet scarves. The central tree stood proud, taller than any I'd seen, its LED lights silent, waiting for one person to flip the switch. But before I could step forward, a booming voice cut through the hush. The protesters' via group of officials, led by Mayor Prescott himself, marched onto the plaza stage. They held a banner that read, "You must cancel unsafe, uninsured, unauthorized." The crowd murmured. Some gasped, others stood firm. Mayor Prescott cleared his throat. "This event lacks required permits. It's bullying traditions and endangering public safety." My heart slammed, but my voice stayed steady. 2. Communities stand before. Panic could set in. Sergeant Miller stepped forward with the veterans. Others, teachers, moms with children, joined in. Their voices rose like wind through pine trees. We signed petitions. We helped rebuild the center. Our kids need this. The air filled with resolve. I stepped from behind the stage curtain, wrapped in my favorite emerald scarf. The crowd parted respectfully as I approached. The mic. 3. The speech that moved hearts. He paused, letting the crowd settle. Then I spoke. "Mayor Prescott, you say this is unauthorized, but when we asked to belong to light the tree, you refused us. You said no, so we built this. We united. We cared. And tonight, we're lighting more than lamps, we're lighting courage." Silence, but it was a powerful silence. Snowflakes drifted. Then, people began to cheer. Patriotic veterans saluted. Children waved lanterns. The mayor's stern face softened. 4. The turning point. Mayor Prescott stepped forward. He looked at the glowing lanterns, the children's eager faces, and finally at me. His voice shook. "I underestimated the heart of this town. You've reminded me true. Tradition isn't gates and privileges. It's sharing light." He reached into his coat, pulled out a folder. "Here, emergency permit, signed by council. Tonight, the tree is yours to light." The crowd erupted. I climbed to the switch box, flipped it. A heartbeat later, the tree exploded in lights, cold snow melding into warmth under golden glow. 5. A cold night. A warm community. Music surged. Lanterns flickered. Children cheered. Even Tom appeared at the edge of the crowd, his eyes glistening. The mayor, now smiling, shook my hand. He announced, "No longer will the tree lighting be exclusive. Anyone can apply. That light belongs to everyone." I looked over Mapleton's faces, every age, race, and walk of life all here, and in that moment, I realized this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about inviting everyone in. 1. Dawn of gratitude. Morning after the festival, I awoke to crisp, sunlit frost on my windowsill. Mapleton felt different, warmer, as if the Christmas tree lights had stayed with us. Volunteers texted photos of children's mugs filled with cocoa. Veterans shared pictures of lanterns bobbing against the snow. I logged into my email. Dozens of messages poured in, thank you notes from families, tearful posts on the town bulletin board, even a video from a teacher in the city. "You restored our holiday magic." 2. A new tradition in the town square. The mayor unveiled an official plaque beside the event center. "Mapleton Inclusive Christmas Festival, founded by Riley Hague, 1963. He read it aloud, calling me forward. The crowd cheered, their applause wrapping me in something stronger than snow. Community. Mayor Prescott leaned in and said quietly, "You changed us, Riley." I smiled back, replying, "We changed each other." Later, the local newspaper ran a front-page story. Ordinary girl sparks extraordinary change in Mapleton. 3. Rekindling relationships. The day brought unexpected reunions. Tom appeared at my bookstore, the Mapleton Nook, arriving with a single red rose. He looked nervous but hopeful. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I was wrong to walk away. Seeing you stand for everyone, it reminded me why I fell in love with you." I held the rose, thoughts swirling like snow flurries. "I chose honesty. Mapleton needed to see you belong here. I needed to know I could stand without you." Tom nodded, tears in his eyes. "Will you let me be part of this tradition, Riley?" I allowed a small smile. "We'll see." 4. Growing. The vision. With the event center's success, I launched plans for year-round programming, winter lantern workshops, summer outdoor readings, a community thrift shop supporting local families. The mayor endorsed them. Town funds followed. I hired Sergeant Miller as community coordinator and Mrs. Jenkins to run a children's arts program. Mapleton buzzed with life, courtesy of a girl once excluded and now leading. 1. A quiet morning reflection. A week after the festival, the snow had melted into slush, but Mapleton seemed brighter, like the glow lingered in its streets. I sat in my parents' old bookstore, now co-managed by me, with shelves dusted in fairy-lined strings, nursing a mug of spiced cider and reflecting. The mayor's plaque shimmered in the morning sun through the front window. I traced the engraved letters with my finger and thought, from exclusion to foundation, the journey isn't over. 2. Outreach to the unseen. He remembered the homeless veteran who'd stood with the lanterns, the single mother who'd cried at a carol, the teenager who'd performed despite shaking hands. None of them felt seen before, so I launched Home for All Wednesdays, offering free hot meals and open mic nights at the event center. On the first night, people trickled in slowly, then dozens filled the tables, sharing stories, laughter, poetry. I talked to each names and faces I'd only glimpsed before, learning their needs, hopes, frustrations. And as they ate, I realized something. This festival was not just a single victory. It was the start of a movement. 3. Tom's new role. That evening, Tom appeared behind the soup station, awkwardly ladling chili. He'd volunteered quietly. When he caught my gaze, he offered a shy smile and said, "I didn't deserve your fight, but I want to stand beside you now." I nodded, passing him a ladle. He served the veterans. I took questions from the mothers, and together, we watched Mapleton come alive again. I thought, perhaps healing does work both ways. 4. A letter from the Pastone. Afternoon, an envelope arrived, framed in the mail. It was from Mayor Prescott's grandmother, writing from a nursing home across the state. She recalled attending the first tree lighting she wasn't allowed to flip. She apologized for the family's coldness, wrote how proud she was of the changes that had taken place, and enclosed a faded black and white photo of her as a young girl with the original event center's first Christmas tree. My heart swelled. I placed the photo on the mantel beside the festival plaque connecting Mapleton's past to its present. 5. Seeds of Tomorrow. January arrived with frost-laced mornings. I gathered the board, Sergeant Miller, Mrs. Jenkins, Tom, and a city planner to discuss upcoming events: spring lantern walk, summer book swap, fall harvest fair. We mapped budgets, volunteers, promotions. This was beyond revenge. It was legacy. 6. A community stronger together. The next day, a reporter asked me at the bookstore window, "Riley, you've changed Mapleton in one Christmas. What's next?" I replied, "Next, we light a new path every season, because inclusion isn't a year, it's a choice." 1. Spring lantern walk. In early April, when the thaw just began to melt remnants of snow, Mapleton gathered for its first spring lantern walk. We lined the event center's courtyard with lanterns hand-painted by children and hung pastel ribbons from budding branches. As dusk fell, families strolled in the cobblestone path, glowing under tiny lights. We read poems, shared tea, and celebrated the promise that light can return even after the longest night. 2. Community book swap. June, the event center hosted a book swap and story fair. Parents brought used books, kids traded stories, and I gave a short speech. Books are windows. Tonight, we opened them to each other. A local author donated signed copies to orphan kids. Teenagers ran reading corners. Even the florist, Mrs. Jenkins, hosted a poetry booth. Mapleton learned that knowledge, like light, is better shared. 3. Summer Harvest Fair. September meant the Mapleton Harvest Fair, a celebration of local growers, bakers, and artisans. We filled booths with homemade jam, honey, knit scarves, and fresh apples. My booth featured warm spiced apple cider with the event center logo on paper cups. Mayor Prescott visited, selecting a jar of Mrs. Jenkins's honey. We talked about next Christmas something bigger and more lasting. 4. Personal growth. Meanwhile, I enrolled in a part-time certificate program at a nearby college in community arts management. Each week I traveled to Burlington, studying funding, programming, and nonprofit leadership. I wanted Mapleton's center to grow beyond festivals to become a lifelong hub of creativity and belonging. 5. TI's. That Helone summer evening, Tom and I sat on the courtyard steps after closing. I handed him a notebook. Plans for a winter youth music program. He looked surprised. You're offering instruments for kids? Yes, I replied. We've saved enough from festival profits to hire a music teacher for free lessons to any child who wants. He squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. I smiled, realizing love doesn't return the way it left, but when built anew, it can stand stronger. 6. Reflectionist. Autumn neared. I walked through the center alone. Lanterns from spring faded, books from summer were circulating, and the harvest signs lingered. I thought, it's more than a building, it's a heartbeat. Mapleton no longer felt like a place I had to prove myself in, but like a home I could nurture. 1. The awards ceremony. In early November, I received an invitation from the state tourism board. It named the Mapleton Inclusive Christmas Festival as the outstanding community event of the year. The awards ceremony took place in Burlington. I stood on stage before dignitaries, awards in hand, feeling the full weight of how far we had come. When I looked back to the back of the hall, I saw Mayor Prescott applauding with genuine pride. I returned to Mapleton with a trophy, volunteers, cheering, and renewed determination. 2. Pressures behind the scenes. Back home, though, not everything glimmered. I began juggling festival planning, event center programs, guiding Tom's youth music rehearsals, my college workload, and board meetings. Emails piled up. I barely saw my parents at the bookstore. One late evening, I sat alone under the courtyard lights, exhausted. I whispered, did I trade loneliness for responsibility? But then a child's laughter echoed, and I realized this fatigue came from building something worth more than me, a community. 3. A misstep. A week later, I made a mistake. In the town newsletter, I publicly thanked the local lumber company, excluding the florist and the town janitor who had given equal time and resources. The omission caused hurt and confusion. I received an apology note from Mrs. Jenkins and a cold email from Sergeant Miller saying, please don't forget those who lifted you. I realized leadership means humility, not perfection. 4. Repair and Reconnectee immediately hosted a town gratitude potluck in the center's foyer. I apologized publicly, acknowledged every volunteer by name, and gifted homemade ornaments in their honor. Mrs. Jenkins hugged me. Sergeant Miller shook hands with a new warmth. I felt the lesson. Power blossoms when rooted in grace. 5. A fresh festival model. With renewed unity, we finalized the plan for the upcoming second annual Inclusive Christmas Festival. We added more wheelchair ramps, more language translation booths, and an honoring elders storytelling corner. Parents signed up as helpers. Teenagers crafted wreaths. The entire planning committee now included town council members, including a smiling Prescott nominee. 6. Reflectionee walked to the center late that night, admiring the growing wreaths and lantern racks. I realized that the event had become bigger than any one person. It was now a town tradition, a living testament to cooperation over exclusion. And I thought, if the lights stay lit, so will the hope. 1. Quiet moment. Sauce. December's chill deepened again. I found myself standing beside the event center's great windows late one evening. Outside, freshly fallen snow smothered the courtyard. Inside, lanterns glowed with soft promise. The festive hum I had built now pulls through halls and hearts. Yet I felt small in that warmth, aware that traditions must outgrow their founders. 2. The advisory council. Mayor Prescott approached me that night, coat in hand. He suggested forming a community advisory council, a group of residents to plan future festivals together. I hesitated, fear crept in, but then transferred the lantern I'm holding into his gloved hand and said, let's pass the light. We scheduled the first meeting for early January 3rd. A letter from Grandma Prescott. My mailbox held a leathery envelope in fine cursive. Grandma Prescott, now in assisted living, wrote, Dear Riley, seeing Mapleton's children laugh under lights warms us in here too. I may not walk to the center, but I walk in my heart every evening, I pressed the note to my heart, a personal confirmation that our effort, once sparked by exclusion, was now enjoyed across generations. 4. Tom's decision that winter. I found Tom back in the bookstore with a journal of planning notes. He looked up and said, "I don't need to stand beside you publicly anymore, but I'd like to support from behind the scenes for real this time." His eyes were steady. I nodded and suggested he help lead youth literacy nights in the center. "I'd like that," he said. 5. Beyond the festival, spring preparations took shape with less of my direct input. The advisory council now hosted meetings, and decisions were shared. I realized my mission wasn't to control, it was to empower. Under the council's guidance, Mapleton expanded programs, arts camps for underserved teens, winter blankets for homeless families, and the spring festival grew to include music, food, and a tree of stories. 6. A conversation with a stranger on snowy morning. I met a woman holding a framed childhood photo in my foyer. "Riley," she said softly, "that's me, age 7, standing under the old tree." I wasn't allowed to be part of it. My mother didn't have a coat warm enough, but tonight, I'll be singing at the festival. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I held her hand and said, "Then your voice belongs here." That's when I understood. This was more than a celebration. It was healing. Narrated by Riley Hague. I am 29 years old. Final page 1. A new winter dawn. Exactly a year after the first inclusive lighting, I walked the courtyard at dusk. The trees stood grand, lanterns floated, and families laughed soft carols. It was no longer Riley's tree. It belonged to Mapleton. 2. Passing the torch on stage. At the lighting ceremony, I introduced the council chair, a high school senior named Marisol, who delivered the address. "Tonight, we honor the girl who taught us to gather when we were told to stand alone. We carry that lesson forward." I handed Marisol my ceremonial lantern and stepped back into the crowd. 3. Approval without applause. Mayor Prescott approached, smiling. "Thank you for trusting us." He paused, then nodded toward the tree. "Mapleton shines brighter because of you." I nodded, content. 4. Next chapter. He walked through the event center's doors one last time as founder. In the foyer, lanterns made by children lay ready for spring workshops. In the old opera hall, students practiced music for summer nights. I knew I'd return as a guest, not an owner. 5. A letter to future generations. A letter was posted inside the center's cornerstone. "This place belongs to you. Light it with hope, guide it with heart, and pass the flame along." Riley Hague. Founder. 6. Final reflection. Standing under the towering tree, lanterns in hand, I whispered to the wind. When they closed the doors to me, I taught them to open theirs. That light belongs to everyone. Snowflakes fell. Lanterns glowed. Mapleton thrived. Final questions. What traditions would your town open to everyone? Who would you empower in your community? How will you pass the light forward? The end. Subscribe to more empowering stories. Share, like, comment.